Yes, correct. Add 7. So we want to isolate the square. We always add or subtract before we multiply or divide. So we're going to add 7 to both sides, as Tom said. We're going to add 7 to both sides. We get 2p squared equals 9. Now how do we get rid of multiplying by 2? Divide by 2, right? Yep. Divide by 2 on both sides. Now, what do we notice that, let's stop here. We have to do something first. We've isolated the square. That's what we did first. We've isolated the square. So before we take the square to both sides, let's identify how many solutions we're going to have. How many solutions are we going to have? Is D positive, 0, or less than 0? 9 halves. What's 9 halves? Isn't that 4.5? So is 4.5 or 9 halves greater than 1 or greater than 0? Yes. So how many solutions will I have? 2. Okay? Now, 9 is a perfect square, but 2 is not. So we know we're going to get a decimal. Okay? Alright, so right now I want you to do me a favor. Take the square root of both sides. Because how do we get rid of the square? We take the square root. So what do we get over here? What's the square root of p squared? P. Is p. Yep. Equals. What's the square root of 9 halves? Now,
3 over 1, wouldn't it?
we understand that, nope, because you can't reduce 9 halves. You can write it as a decimal 4.5, but take the square root of 9 halves. Now, remember what I said, if D is not a perfect square, which in this case D is not a perfect square, we're going to have to approximate to the nearest hundredth. First of all, how many solutions do we say we're going to have? 2. So what should we put right now?
Plus negative.
Plus negative. Now I made a mistake. I don't want to push equal. I want to put equals here because we're not going to get a perfect integer answer. So what do we want to put here? We want to put an approximation sign. It's like a squiggly and equal sign. That means approximately, because we're approximating to the nearest hundred. So we need to make sure we donate that. Make sure we make that donation. Yes, that's what I'm looking for. An approximation because it's not a perfect answer. Okay. All right. What did you guys get as your answer to the nearest hundred? 2.1 what? 2. Awesome. There we go. So sometimes, guys, when that D is not going to be, is not a perfect square, you're going to have to approximate to the nearest hundredth. But still pay attention whether you have 1 solution, 0 solutions, or 2 solutions. It all depends on what D is. Okay? All right, does that make sense when you have to approximate? When D is not a perfect square. You got it. Awesome.